Or they're taking
Well, you can do that, you can convert them to type, but I'll use it to show you an example. So this is a job. Okay. And so let's say I'm doing this job and I need to make changes to whatever I need to do. You can just take this here. And so when she gets it.
Okay, if everyone could turn their mics on, please. It is 4:30. We're going to go ahead and call meeting to order. This is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, the Sugarland Development Corporation meeting. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment? City Secretary. Okay, we will move to item number 4. Minutes. A, consideration and action on the minutes of the March 1st, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by McCutcheon. Second by Ferguson. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion unanimous, motion carries. Item 5, resolution, consideration of an action on Sugarland Development Corporation resolution number SLDC R2201. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Sugarland Development Corporation approving a request by the City of Sugarland to fund a contract for regional activity centers and neighborhood activity centers implementation phase 2. We have Ruth Blomer, city planner.
Good evening or good afternoon. I don't know what time of day it is. Maybe it'll be up. It used to be. Okay, now we're unmuted. Okay, so we were in front of the SLDC back in March to give you a preview of this project. So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with it because it's basically the same information we covered at the workshop. But just as a reminder, the land use plan established the regional and neighborhood activity centers. And these are intended to be mixed use walkable areas, and a lot of them will require redevelopment to see those visions come to fruition. There's also an action item that directs us to evaluate the best way to implement our regional and neighborhood activity centers. Since the current zoning mechanism is a PD district, we don't have any standard districts. And so we started. Okay. So the land use plan also encourages us as a city to be more proactive in redevelopment, and City Council has taken that a step further and supported an extensive approach to redevelopment, including developing new zoning districts, and has identified commercial redevelopment as one of its top priorities recently. And then as city staff, we have a commercial redevelopment all-in initiative that this sort of folds up underneath. So back in 2019, we started initiating some discussions about this project, about how to implement our regional and neighborhood activity centers. And then of course, the pandemic hit in early 2020, so that delayed our work. But we did hire Clarion Associates back in 2021, at the beginning of 2021 for phase 1 of the project, which through which they helped us evaluate basically how to best incentivize redevelopment. They did some stakeholder interviews, some benchmarking of peer cities, and then establish some recommendations for us for our future approach. We reviewed those recommendations with the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission at a joint meeting back in November last year. And just as a quick reminder, these were some of the recommendations. Start with the land use plan and the activity centers that we established there. Build on our unique assets, our water, our history, educate and build community support, start early in the process to talk to the community about development in these areas, simplify and incentivize redevelopment. So make the process as easy and simple as possible. Rein in the PD, look at evaluating some kind of modifications to our PD process to make that a little bit simpler. And then embrace a balanced approach. So kind of looking at all the different tools that we can have in our toolbox to help us with redevelopment. And then finally, the kind of the big one is zone for mixed use. So they did recommend that we create two new mixed use zoning districts and establish some design standards for specifically for mixed use development. So we are now engaging in phase 2 of the project. It's been divided up into 4 phases. Initial outreach, the annotated outline, draft amendments, and then adoption. We're anticipating it'll take about 12 months to complete the project. And this is an SLDC funded contract for a little over $75,000. So just generally the phase 2 approach is a reminder. We are recommending that we create a city manager joint city council P&Z advisory task force, which will provide input and guidance to staff as we develop the new regulations. It'll consist of 3 members of city council and 3 members of the planning and zoning commission. Throughout the project, we're also going to have, we're going to work on developing a communications plan, but we do intend to have a project webpage, among other things, to make sure that the community is aware of the project and is able to track along as we're working through. And then there will be some specific opportunities for public input, including at the creation of the annotated outline. Once we have that available, we'll share it with the public and have both an online and in-person opportunity for providing input. Then we will go into drafting the code amendments and then finally go through adoption. And each of those phases will also have online opportunities for public input. So that's kind of the summary of the project. And so at this point, we recommend that SLDC approve resolution SLDC R2201, which would fund the project at $75,740 for the land use plan mixed use activity centers implementation project phase 2. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Could you please go back?
I have a question when you're done.
Oh, I just wanted to read the previous slide.
This one?
And then one back further, please.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I'm good.
William?
Yes. So this all started in 2019. Please excuse my ignorance. Okay.
No problem.
It's all started in 2019. We wanted to come together and come up with a better way or a better plan. And since 2019, now 2022, we're finished part 1. I'm not quite sure what part 1 is. I have no idea what part 1 cost. And now we're thinking about starting part 2. I have no idea really what I understand part 2 to be. I do see that it's about $76,000. And I know this money is SLDC money, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not a taxpayer issue. I'm not concerned about that. I just don't know. I don't know what we're doing.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's okay. So back in phase 1, basically what we were looking at was what is the best way to implement our activity centers, and primarily from a zoning standpoint, but also are there other things we can do to incentivize development and redevelopment in our activity centers. And so we knew that one of the ways that could happen was through creating new mixed use zoning districts. We could continue using the PD process that we currently have.
Right.
Those were essentially the 2 main options we knew we had before us. We didn't go into that process assuming what the answer was going to be. We knew there were some challenges with our existing PD process, but we also didn't just assume that we were going to come out of that with a recommendation to move towards creating standard zoning districts. And so we asked Clarion to join us in trying to figure out the best way to do that. And so they brought with them their expertise, their knowledge from working with other communities. And then we also had them spend some time doing that benchmarking research of other communities, looking at communities that are in similar situations that have done similar things to what we're looking at doing of redevelopment through, and doing mixed use and redevelopment. And so that's where then they came out with the recommendations and that where I ran through those very quickly, the recommendations. One of the main things, like I said, is creating the new mixed use zoning districts, which is then what we're going to do in phase 2 of the project. So we're implementing the recommendations that came out of phase 1 in phase 2. And so essentially we're going to be working with them to create those districts. And they're going to be very different from the standard districts that we have today. What we have today is your kind of typical suburban, what we call Euclidean zoning, where it's your residential goes here and your commercial goes here and your industrial goes here. And so what we're saying is we want to mix that up a little bit and we want to focus more on the form and less on the use. And so where do the buildings sit? What is the pedestrian experience like? What is how do cars get through the area, but focus more on the pedestrian? And so if you think about town square, this is a little bit more of the form that we're thinking than our kind of traditional strip centers. Where's the parking located? Is it in surface lots or is it in garages? And so all of those standards are things that we're going to have to come up with to create these standard zoning districts. And so our consultants are going to help us come up with those districts. The first step in that is coming up with the annotated outline, which is essentially us walking through, okay, these are all the different elements of what we need to address in a new zoning district. The setbacks, the height, the building finishes, the uses, and kind of laying out how we're going to address those, like what approach we want to take, because there's lots of different ways you can do that. You can do just a flat maximum height, or you can look at a bulk plane, distance from residential, there's different approaches. And so we want to kind of lay out, this is how we want to approach it. And then when we do the draft amendments, that's when they're actually saying, okay, section 2-3.014 is going to read like this. And they're actually going to put it in the code. And then we're going to get more feedback. And then the adoption codes is basically just the edited version of the draft amendments. So that's kind of the process that we're going to be walking through. Yeah, please.
So like almost all the properties, I say almost because there's some areas that don't, almost all properties in the city have some sort of zoning on them. When you buy that piece of property, you come to the city, you say, what is it zoned? What are the allowed uses? What can I do? What can we do there? And our code not only outlines what uses, it says about the sidewalks and certain landscaping requirements and how big your sign can be and all those types of things. When we did the land use plan update, which was completed in 2018, that was that 5-year process with all that community input. It brought forth a new vision for land use in Sugarland. And part of that vision is these activity centers that would have a mix of uses. Well, right now we have our land use plan, which is the policy guiding document, and we have our zoning code, and there's a disconnect because the land use plan is saying we want mixed use in these areas, but there is no zoning or tools in the regulatory piece of what we can actually do to implement things that allows for those mixed use unless it's the PD process. So that's sort of the one exception. So anybody that would want to do mixed use, or if we would even want to encourage mixed use in grand areas of the city, 100-acre areas, we can't do that now. We don't have the zoning that allows that. So there's this disconnect between our policy guiding document and what our regulatory rules and development codes say. And we're trying to align those so that we can bring to fruition what we envisioned and set out for in the land use plan. Does that help?
It does. I've learned a lot, especially lately with other city issues. So I'm trying to keep up. So Clarion is a consulting group.
Correct.
And so they've been with us from the beginning. And we're saying, hey, continue. Is that what I'm, okay.
Right.
I'm just trying to understand. And as I'm thinking about land use and all, and by the way, I love the ideas, the racks and all that, but then I'm thinking, well, we're about out of development land. Not that we're out, but we're getting there. So is this part of a redevelopment also? Do we go back to, this is just a air quote, do we go back to Sugar Creek and say, here's how we want to do it? Do we go back to Greatwood and say, here, I'm trying to keep up here. Hey, River Park in the future, let's do this, or New Territory, let's do that. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, so what we're talking about specifically is creating the regulations that would allow for those different kinds of mixed of uses. Then we also have to apply it to the map. And so that's kind of where, hey, Sugar Creek, let's do it this way in the
Yeah.
future, or, town center area.
Right.
But again, it's all based on the land use plan and that community-based plan that was developed and approved by city council. That is part of the comprehensive plan, and it provides that future vision. And so, yeah, we would ultimately, maybe in some
We're not
cases.
talking about rezoning Greatwood or Sugar Creek.
Right.
We're talking about those areas as those are pockets of residents that
Right.
have input.
Right.
Then of course, that's why we've spent so much time crafting this scope, that there is adequate community engagement as part of it. Because there was a lot in the land use plan when we developed the land use plan. Well, now we're talking about the regulatory piece, and we're trying to make sure that everybody's coming along for the ride.
Mhm.
And so we won't be rezoning Greatwood to
Well,
mixed use.
Right.
But will we want to be engaging the folks that live in those neighborhoods, that, yes, this is part of us kind of connecting this visionary document, the land use plan, with our development code? Because otherwise, how are we gonna implement the vision if we don't have these codes that match what our vision was set out?
And by the way, I apologize for using like a community name, because I know that's not what we're talking about. But as I'm thinking about where this will apply, may I lay it across a track 5 or lay it across an Imperial, or that's really what we're,
That's what we're
okay,
talking about.
okay. I'm just
So
trying to keep,
the main activity centers are what we call the Sugar Creek Triangle, which
Right.
is the area of the larger area that is the district that's being proposed right now. It's also what we call town center, not town square, but the larger area.
larger.
So the mall, the market and town center, this larger area, track 5, Imperial, and then Lake Point, which is where Floor is located. So those are the 5 regional activity centers that are set out in the land use plan, which is where is envisioned to encourage these types of mixed uses.
And then we also have the neighborhood activity centers, which is another element of it, that's why the consultant recommended 2 different mixed use zoning districts. So there would be one that would be for the more intense, heavier traffic and things like that,
The neighborhood activity centers are smaller, focused on like
serving the neighborhood.
serving the neighborhood, smaller shopping centers rather than these larger commercial areas.
That are more like regional.
I'm actually getting caught up. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry about the 5 minutes, but
No
thank
need to
you.
apologize.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
What do you got?
This is all
Carol.
part of this process,
Yeah.
so we're
Carol.
really happy to ask questions.
Yes, so if the mixed use rack and neck zoning districts go through as you were envisioned and they're in place, and their project comes forward and it qualifies for a mixed use zoning district, so would this be administratively approved then, since it meets the qualifications of the mixed use zoning district?
That's the part we have to work out through this process. This phase 2, when we're working through creating the zoning districts, we're also going to be creating the processes for those districts. And so I think what we've talked about is sort of having like a hybrid where there may be certain development types or certain development applications that would still go through some kind of public process through the Planning, Zoning Commission and City Council. And there would be others that would be administratively approved. But that,
It's just like the other standard zoning districts that we have now, there's certain layers, like I think I gave an example of the last one, like you create certain benchmarks of if a project is gonna create 10,000 new square feet of whatever, that's gonna trigger a P&Z meeting. If it's below 10,000 square feet, it's only having this much of influence. It meets all of these criteria that we've already set out and approved in the code, then that would be something that could be done administratively. There's also elements where you have the opportunity to request that it go to P&Z or something like that. So there's multiple layers. It's not just we're creating this code and everything's done administratively.
Can I just answer that a
Yeah,
little
that's right.
differently? That's why you have 3 city council members and 3 P and Z members on this committee over the next year to come up with all of this, right?
Right,
So we
right.
leave it to them.
Correct.
And I think
Okay.
we also have to work out the process of how it actually gets applied to property, whether it is requested by a property owner that is bringing forward a project, or if it is something that is kind of in our incentive tool bag that we want to apply at the city level to incentivize development. So you have to work out all of that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion by Nishad,
Second.
second, okay. You would vote at this time? Okay, motion carries, vote is unanimous. Okay. Item number 6, reports, review of and discussion on fiscal year 2021, annual report and fiscal year 2022 first quarter report. Devon Rodriguez.
All right, good afternoon. I will be presenting your annual report today while our director enjoys a very much well-earned vacation. So this is for fiscal year 2022, and you have a printed copy here in front of you of the annual report as well as the one-page quarter 1 report for this next fiscal year. And so I'm just going to start out with going through kind of highlighting a few pages. So page 7 and 8 is the projects that were announced in fiscal year 21. I'll highlight a couple. There was the Lovett Industrial announced the $15 million redevelopment of the former National Oil well Barco site at 500 Industrial. So this is a redevelopment example that we have in our business park, that they scraped the buildings and built new buildings. And the SLDC approved an incentive agreement for this project to move forward, which is 320,000 square feet of industrial space. The great thing about this project was not only that we got new industrial space to market, but that it also brought Boise Cascade was able to expand into a new element of their business that they're working on. So they have a current spot in the business park that they sell different types of building materials, but they were moving into a new line as part of the overall Boise Cascade of providing manufacturing and creating doors for homes, for businesses. And so they were able to move into this property as well and brought with them a lot of personal property and inventory that is added to our tax rolls. We also had Bluebonnet Nutrition expanding into a new 128,000 square foot building in the business park. They're under construction right now. They have been in Sugarland for a long time, but this is a major expansion for them. So we are very excited to assist with that project. And then of course, Acredo Packaging's 4th expansion in Sugarland that has brought their campus development to almost 600,000 square feet in our business park. And then finally, PG Golf was another expansion into some industrial spec buildings that were built out on Derry Ashford and West Airport. And with this expansion, they brought with them, or they had the opportunity to do some new AI technology that was part of their business. And so we're really happy that we were able to help with that project. That was kind of a long time in the making, was one that stopped because of COVID. So really glad that that came to fruition. In total, these projects will bring approximately $49 million in capital investment and 301 new jobs to Sugarland. Now on page 9 is also now talking about our Sugarland Space Cowboys. And so we are also going to be recognizing tonight later, but the 4B Corporation did commit $10 million to renovate the stadium over a 3-year period. If you attended on Saturday, you saw some of those amazing improvements that were done. Last year was very player focused. This year it's been very fan focused, and I think folks are really excited to enjoy this season. Next on the Sugarland Strong campaign, this was I think it's on page 10 or 11, but this was our pivot sort of during COVID, that we had our annual business recognition event, and we wanted to be able to still do some sort of recognition for the businesses, but folks really weren't ready to be coming together yet. So we partnered with the Sugarland Legacy Foundation to host a week-long virtual campaign called Sugarland Strong. We highlighted our businesses. There was lots of videos that were created. We had a social media campaign, and then also an award that was given at the end of it for our community partner, which was Memorial Hermann this year. Starting on page 12, we have our All In for SLTX campaign. So this was a really big focus for our office for 2021 was to, continue to support our Sugarland business community with these well-executed placemaking initiatives, events, and also business retention and expansion efforts. And so on page 13 starts talking about the success of Sweet Cash, which was, our second or I think third round that we did of Sweet Cash, but really great turnout. A total of 83,150 gift card submissions were collected from participants purchasing a voucher from any Sugarland business. Local businesses really responded, that just overwhelmingly positive feedback. They really liked being able to welcome new customers. It brought out people that maybe didn't know about their business before. And it really provided some immediate cash flow and some free marketing that they gained through the program. So that was a great success. Page 16 highlights the placemaking efforts. So we had the request for a placemaking program that provided funding for innovative and creative projects. And some of those projects included the Art Museum in Texas, our first Parklet, the Lone Star Garage mural, and the mental health art projects such as Project Hope murals and the art boxes. Starting on page 20 is our marketing success for the year. So this was our foundational year with DCI that we contracted with. They are, known as sort of the experts in economic development and tourism marketing. And we began, after doing some of that foundational work, worked on a national media relations program and established a digital marketing strategy to really identify those opportunities to improve and promote Sugarland's online presence. Some of the tactics is kind of weaving in that SEO keywords that improves the website content. So when you search Google, the more careful we are about the words that we place in the content and how it works with the different search algorithms, it moves our ranking up higher on those lists when you are Googling Sugarland. Establishing a uniform social brand and investing in paid research. We also, some of our other highlights was that we landed the top spot in the 15 most ambitious US cities list. And so that recognized us for the best business savvy lists in the nation. And then finally on page 22 is our financial statements for the year. So our ending fund balance of about 6.9 million, which was about 359 higher than the budgeted ending fund balance. Our revenues were a little over 100% of budget, and the expenditures were about 95% of budget, coming in about 283,000 lower than budgeted. So those are just some highlights on the annual report. We hope that you'll take the time to read it. I think it really came out not only with some great information, but beautiful this year as well. And then for the Q1 report, this is very kind of short snippet of what happened in Q1. We have the Credo Phase 4 groundbreaking. Our director was awarded BizNow's 2021 Rising Star, which we recognized her at a previous meeting. We have our IEDC Excellence in Economic Development Awards for the Sweet Cash program. And then also that our staff attended the Economics Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that is a conference that we go to with all of our economic development partners in Fort Bend County. So we go collectively as kind of the Fort Bend County team representing all of our cities. And this is a great opportunity to interact with those site selectors one-on-one, and we host a dinner where we have the opportunity to meet with them one-on-one. So that's just kind of some of those highlights of the Q1 reports. We also have the vacancy listed there that you can take a look at. And I'll just open it up for any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board?
None.
Okay. Thank you, Devin. Item number 7, director's report. Devin Rodriguez.
So I just have some marketing updates. DCI secured coverage of the Space Cowboys and our office in the Houston Chronicle. So touching on the rebrand activations that happened, DCI also secured coverage in Travel Plus and MSN of hotels and restaurants in Sugarland, offering special Space Cowboy themed deals and dishes. And then as a result of a pitch titled "Baseball is Back, Why It's More Than a Game to America's Mid-Sized Cities,"
DCI secured a lead with American City and County. And so we completed that, that interview recently. So we'll see what comes out of that. But a lot of, with the start of baseball season, a lot of coverage that we're looking to get for our Sugarland Space Cowboys and the investment that Sugarland has made in baseball here. So that's all I have. Oh, I have no questions. With that. thank you.
Okay, thank you, Devin.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, Carol.
And thank you.